Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat Podcast. My name is Chris Cowlin, and this evening I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by a former Spurs star, a first-team player with Spurs for 3 seasons, making 58 Premier League appearances for the club, 11 appearances in the FA Cup, 4 appearances in the League Cup, and 3 appearances in European competition, a total of 76 appearances for Tottenham Hotspur. Of course, he was an unused sub when Spurs won the Worthington Cup at Wembley Stadium in 1999. After leaving Spurs, he played for Charlton, Middlesbrough, Aston Villa and Queen's Park Rangers, making a career total 442 competitive appearances, scoring 9 times, represented England under 18 and under 21 level, and also won 7 full international caps. Luke Young, welcome to the channel. How are you?
Really good, Chris. Thanks for having me, mate. You've done your research there, pal.
Well, you've had a great career. I tell you what, that's exactly where we will start, because 16 seasons as a Premier League footballer, that is some going. And I tell you what, a lot of footballers or ex-footballers would have loved to have said, you know, to have played 16 seasons in the Premier League. And interestingly, you only made 1 appearance outside the Premier League, and that was 1 in the Championship. But yeah, what a career you've had.
Thank you, mate. Yeah, appreciate that. I think if you'd have said to me as a kid that I'd go on and play for 16 years in the top flight, you know, I wouldn't have quite believed you. So, yeah, when you look back, super proud of having the career I did.
Look, of course, you haven't played since 2014. What have you been up to for the last 11 years?
Family man, really. Done a lot of travelling with the kids. We actually we brought the kids out of school for 5.5 months at one stage, and we travelled around the world. It was the best thing I've ever done by like a long distance, to be honest. So yeah, not too much. Worked a little bit in a football agency for a while. That was very difficult to be good on merit, if that makes sense. You could really do a good job, but the bigger companies could come along and kind of entice your players away and stuff. So I kind of put that to bed a little bit. So now on to pastures new and looking for like new opportunities. Obviously, we'll mention it later, but I've started a podcast, and I've also got a mentoring and analysis company where we look at young players' games over the weekend, and we feed that back over a Zoom call, stuff we feel they do well, but more importantly, the stuff that we feel that they can improve on, because I think it's vital that you're looking at your game, especially for the younger players, because when we do speak to them, they've kind of got like almost an inflated opinion on how they're doing, and we can give those little kind of bits and pieces of advice where we feel like they can improve, and I think it can make a real big difference.
Look, before we mention your podcast, of course, you mentioned there about the different work that you've been doing in football. How different was that to playing, being on the other side?
Yeah, completely different. You know, when you're playing, it's sort of all consuming. You know, you're thinking about the next training session, the next game, and everything is about winning at the weekend. So obviously when you retire, you can feel a little bit more relaxed and enjoy the game a little bit more. You know, when you're playing top flight football, it is so intense. I mean, I think the only thing that would probably be more intense would be being a manager, because you've got to make, you know, a million decisions all weeks. But I think it was super intense being a player. And then once you retire, you can sit back a little bit and enjoy the game for what it is.
You didn't fancy management then?
No, I don't think so. I think, do you know what? I wish I'd have done my badges, but because I had the 2 years at the end of my career where I weren't really playing, I kind of was disillusioned with the game a little bit. And obviously, with the injury I had, I couldn't get back in the first team. So I need a little bit of break from it, if I was honest. And but I do look back now and think, I wonder whether I should have gone and got my badges anyway.
Yeah. Luke, let's talk about your podcast, because I think you're 3 episodes in. More than a name, you and, of course, presenter Max Whittle are doing this podcast. How did it come about? And, you know, how long have you wanted to do this for?
Well, I reached out to Max probably over a year ago to see, because I saw him on Aston Villa TV, and then he'd done a little bit on Charlton TV as well. And I just thought of maybe doing a podcast on Charlton. I had a feeling that they were going to go up. and it'd be a good story. And they actually did go up, but we had a chat and we decided that, it probably wasn't the right time. And then probably a year passed, and maybe Max had a bit more free time from his presenting, and he got back in touch. And we started just having a chat about, what we could possibly do. And we just felt that talking about sports in general, any sport, about, elite level and what it takes to get there and stay there, and obviously different people's journeys and the adversity that you have to overcome. And it kind of got born from there, really. And like you say, we've done three that have been put out there so far. Today was James Haskell, England and Lions rugby player. So that will be out for a week, and then next Tuesday we'll drop the next one. But I'm really enjoying it, and it's actually given me a chance to reach out to some of my old teammates and get back in touch a little bit.
Yeah, that's great. You were also on Talksport earlier today, so can we expect to see you a lot more, or hear your voice a lot more on TV and radio shows?
I don't know about that. Bentley's been trying to get me on. Darren Bent, actually. I was on Drive with Darren Bent, and he's been trying to get me on for a couple of years now. And I decided to come and do it for him. But obviously, I want to return favour, and I'd like to get Bentley on the podcast. And to be fair, he said he's going to come on, but we'll see.
You got to get him to say some nice things about Tottenham, though.
Why does he normally not then?
Oh no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. He wears his Arsenal shirt half the time on that show.
And why would that be? Would that be because of his lack of opportunity, you think, at the club? Is that where he's coming from?
Well, I think he was an Arsenal fan when he signed anyway. So, yeah. And of course, it didn't work out very well with him at Tottenham. Let's talk about your Spurs career, because you grew up in Harlow and you grew up as a Spurs fan.
Yeah. From the minute, obviously, I could kick a ball around. I think my brother probably just put a Tottenham shirt on me because he was Spurs mad as well. So, yeah, from as early as I can remember, I was a Tottenham fan. And my brother used to take me to a few of the games, like growing up. And then when I was old enough to go on my own, I used to go with a couple of mates from school, go and watch the games at the Lane. And then obviously, round about the age of 10, I was playing for my Sunday team, and got recognised and asked to go training at White Hart Lane on a Monday night.
It must have been incredible to wear that shirt. And then, of course, you signed as a schoolboy in 1995, to have watched the team at White Hart Lane, to then think that one day you might play for the club. That must have been some surreal experience.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I remember the first time I was asked to go on a Monday night. I was 10 years of age, and I was a little bit nervous about it. And to be honest, I was thinking about not going. And now that sounds mad, like obviously being a Tottenham fan, but I remember I come home from school and my mum had left a package on the side, and it said, if you're going to Tottenham tonight, open it. If you're not going, don't open it. Now, obviously, I've got home from school on my own, and there's a present on the table, and I'm going to open it, and it was the yellow away kit, Tottenham kit. So I've opened it now, and I've put it on, and then away we went. So yeah.
You've still got it?
Oh God, no, I wouldn't know where that was now. I wish I did.
Do you know what, Luke? As a Spurs fan, I'm a huge collector of things. As a former Premier League footballer, of course, playing for Tottenham as well. Have you got many items that you've saved over the years? Did you collect things over the years?
I think for a little while I did when I was playing, but it'll be in the garage now. Like after you move a couple of times, you move house, you kind of bubble wrap it up and it goes in the garage. But I think I've still got a couple of Spurs shirts somewhere. I've definitely still got my Worthington Cup shirt with the picture of the team. I think I've got that framed in the garage somewhere. So yeah, I'll dig that up.
Yeah, fantastic piece. Now, of course, you signed your first professional contract with Tottenham in 1997, age just 18, and you hadn't trained with the team very much at all. And then you were given your first team debut very, very quickly due to the amount of injuries that Spurs had.
Yeah, that's right. I think we'd had a couple of injuries at centre back, and I'd played the last 3 or 4 reserve games at centre back. Now, I'd never been a centre back. I used to play there in a 3, maybe at a push, but we played 4 at the back, and I played a few in the resis. And then John Scales went down injured on a Thursday, and I heard Stuart Houston shouting over, "Can we have Youngie?" And I think it was Theo Foley at the time was the reserve team manager, and he hadn't heard it, but I had, and I'm thinking I'm going over the first team here, like not been over there for months, maybe trained once or twice before. So anyway, he shouts it over again. So I go over, and they're actually doing team shape. So John Scales has gone in, and he hands out the bibs, and it's I think it was either Walks in goal, Ian Walker, or Sullivan. And then it goes Stephen Carr, Sol Campbell, Luke Young, and I think Andy Sinton was actually playing left back at the time. But
Yeah.
I'm thinking, well, he's giving the bibs out as if like I've got half a chance of playing in the first team the weekend, and it's really surreal, really, because I hadn't really trained with them.
Look, the debut for Tottenham, of course, was at West Ham, losing the game 2-1. You very nearly scored. Shaki Hislop saved, but that team, you named half of it there: Bardson, Carr, Young, Campbell, Sinton, Nielsen, Anderton, Clements, Ginola, Everson, and Armstrong. And the subs that day, only 5: Fox, Gower, Thelwell, Walker, and Wilson. Talk to us about that day. How you felt?
Yeah, well, just going back to the next day in training. So obviously I go home that night, and John Scales is going to have a fitness test on a Friday. So obviously if he comes through that, I'm not playing, and I'm warming up with the squad, and John goes in. I can see him walking in. So now I'm thinking, looks like I might have a chance of playing here, and the bibs get handed out again because you do a bit of team shape on the Friday, and I'm next to Sol again. So yeah, and then go home that night. He still hasn't committed to naming the 11. So we go to White Hart Lane for a pre-match before we head off, and George Graham used to hold a meeting in there, and he flips the chart over and my name's next to Sol. So now I know I'm starting, but it was great because I didn't really have a lot of time to overthink it. And then we travelled to Upton Park, and I felt like I'd done pretty well that day. But obviously, when you lose to one of your London rivals,
Yeah.
you're obviously devastated. I almost nicked a goal at the end to equalise, but I just hit the crossbar.
How did the family feel about that? Because I expect you had quite a lot of time then to fill them in to say, look, I'm playing.
Yeah, do you know what? I kind of held it back a little bit. Like, I think my dad was saying, "Well, what's happening then? What's that? What happened today?" I went, "Oh no, I don't really know, Dad. Like, everyone's training and such. I just didn't want that pressure, that added pressure of everyone knowing." So yeah, I kind of held it to myself, but deep down there, I thought, right, I've got a great chance of playing here.
Look, you mentioned Sol Campbell there. I want to ask you about how you felt. I know we'll come on to talk about when you left Spurs. Sol Campbell left pretty much the same time as you. What did you make of being his teammate, that he come out in the media and said, "I'm staying"? What did you make of it?
I think it's always a difficult one when you're a player. I think if he's still playing games for Spurs and he gets asked, that question on camera, what's he supposed to say? Do you know what I mean? If deep down he knows he's leaving, do you just come out and say that? He's probably caught between a difficult position, whether owning up to say, do you know what, it looks like my time's up at Tottenham, or maybe you never know. Maybe he hadn't made his mind up by then. But I think, if I'm going to be honest with you, I felt like at the time we was a bit mid-table-ish, weren't we? Let's be honest. So
Yeah, yeah.
Sol was getting to the stage where he was perhaps one of the best centre backs in the Prem, but maybe even worldwide. He was an absolute colossus for us, and there's probably a chance that he'd outgrown the squad. Maybe not Tottenham as a club, but maybe he was ready to go to that. I think if it would have been Man United, or he would have gone abroad, or Liverpool, I think the fans obviously would have accepted it. But one place you can't go is across the road, and that's obviously where the hatred still stems from that.
When did you find out what happened?
I mean, it's hard for me to think back now. I don't know whether I went exactly the same summer or not. You might know more than me.
It was the same summer. It was the same, yeah.
I would have found out exactly like everyone else. I don't think anyone else in the squad knew. I know, like, people like Les would shout out stuff on the coach, or Darren Anton would give him a bit of stick, but I don't think he ever showed his cards to whether he'd be staying or going. I think he obviously came out and told the fans that he's going to stay. And again, it's a difficult one. I mean, what could he do if he's asked a direct question? So I think only Sol will know, and I think he answered the question by leaving, and obviously going to the biggest rivals. The fans were never going to forgive him.
Who out of that team, when you made your debut against West Ham, who out of that team do you still keep in touch with?
Darren Anderton. I
Not Sol
messaged
then.
Stephen. Not so. I mean, I did a little bit. He actually asked for to go into Aston Villa at one stage when he was coming sort of to the end of his options once he'd left Arsenal. And I think he might have ended up going to Portsmouth or Newcastle, but he got my number and asked me to throw him in at Aston Villa. So I messaged Stephen Carr a little bit. Stephen Clements, still get on with Clem.
Yeah.
But you know what it's like once you finish playing and you have your own family and your own world, you kind of lose touch a little bit. But yeah, they would be the ones.
Luke, as you spoke earlier about, being a 10-year-old boy, going to White Hart Lane and then watching Spurs from the stands. Of course, you made your home debut against Manchester United in the League Cup, and of course, Spurs then went on to win the League Cup in '99. Talk to us about that experience of playing at White Hart Lane, and also then going on to, for Spurs to be winning that competition, but unfortunately, you didn't get minutes in the final.
No, and do you know what? I felt like everything that season was a bonus for me, if I'm honest. And I didn't
Yeah.
have time to think, as I said before. So, what I think that game might have been a Wednesday, Tuesday or Wednesday midweek, and I just come off the back of making my debut, and now it's my opportunity. So I must have done okay to stay in because he could have reshuffled it if I hadn't have played well. So, and then I'm playing Man United in the quarter final of the League Cup, and when you're young, you don't tend to overthink things, and perhaps that's for the best when you're a young player. You just get on with what's put in front of you, and it's a great night that night. I remember us playing particularly well, and obviously to win that and then get to Wembley and to win a trophy and be part of that squad was everything was just a bonus for me and a bit of a dream.
Of course, we spoke about Sol Campbell, but of course, you were working under a former Arsenal boss, George Graham. What was the feeling inside the Spurs dressing room having an ex-Arsenal manager? Because I remember back, the fans, it was a very mixed feeling, wasn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And I've got nothing but good things to say about George Graham, so I won't be overly popular with some of the fans, I'm guessing. But he took me from like a pool of reserve players where we felt like we was in like kind of a dead end. There was nowhere to go. You had to kind of look for a loan if possible, but there didn't seem any way into the first team squad. And the first couple of days that George Graham come in, he made us all run. We literally, as a group of pros, whoever was a pro, you ran round the pitch, round and round and round. We had a couple of obstacles, like you had to jump something, go in and out of some cones. Then there were some ladders, and we just continually ran round. And I think he tried to say that the squad's not fit enough and we need to do more. And I think some of the older pros saw that as a bit of a slight on their professionalism, if you like. And obviously he rubbed up a few the wrong way early, but maybe that's what he wanted to do because I think at that time the club did need a bit of a kick up the backside, and he certainly came in and put his authority down.
Look, you talking about lots of running. Darren Anston was on the show a couple of years ago, and we were talking about Christian Gross. Did you have much to do with Christian Gross and his time at Spurs? Because Anston come on and said that he had all the players running around in car parks before matches.
Yeah, no, I was. What would I would have been? I think I was might have even been a schoolboy or an apprentice when Christian Gross was Christian Gross after Jerry.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So I would have been either a young pro or a second year YTS when Christian Gross came in, and didn't have anything to do with him. Didn't really see him on the training ground. So yeah, I've heard some bizarre sort of stories coming out, and I mean, he didn't last long, did he? Bless him.
Certainly not. Talk to me about the fans, your connection with the fans and playing at White Hart Lane. What do you remember about those special times?
Yeah, I mean, look, trying to remember back to the quarter final of the League Cup. I just remember being in the tunnel when they played the famous music, and as you used to run out then, I don't think we was doing the shaking hands things at the time, so you'd run out as fast as you could, but you had the glory Tottenham Hotspur playing as you came out, and I would get like the hairs on the back of my neck would go up, and as I'm going out to the pitch as a 19-year-old, I'd be thinking, this is everything you've ever dreamed of. There's no way out now. Go and smash it, type thing. There's no point in going out there trying to do okay. And a night game at White Hart Lane was incredible. The noise was fantastic. The pitch was always immaculate. So I absolutely loved playing at home. And I think one of the feelings I always had was I don't want to let the fans down. Like being homegrown, I felt like I weren't a big name and I weren't on loads of money and I hadn't been bought. And I just thought, I hope they feel like I'm doing a good enough job. You know, you didn't want to let them down when you're a 19-year-old coming through the ranks.
Yeah, yeah. Luke, talk to me about your best position, because I know when you came in at Spurs, you literally played in every position across that back line. But if you were to say what your best and favourite position is, what is it? Because as I said, you played all over the place, didn't you, under various different managers?
Yeah, I mean, I'd always been a right back really, and in at one stage in the youth team, we went to three at the back, and sometimes I'd play as a third centre back. Sometimes if we was playing against really quick strikers, the youth team manager might move me to centre back to try and. I wasn't like electric, but I was quick enough. So I had played there a little bit, but yeah, my best position was right back. But I'd played left back a little bit in the youth team when I think one of the older lads got injured, and got me another opportunity to play in the Division One side, which was the year above. So I kind of was plugging holes a little bit in the first team at Tottenham, and it's hard to get judged in front of 40,000 people each
Mm.
week when you're kind of just trying to fill a gap and do the best you can when you're out of position a little bit. And I wouldn't change any of that, though, because one, it gave me opportunity to play first team football and get the appearances under my belt. Two, being versatile is always a plus because, like I just mentioned there, you get the opportunity to play. I think I even played right midfield, left wing back, centre back. But I think you'll know the answer to my biggest problem was someone to the right of me was one of the best right backs in the league at the time. So I was never going to get ahead of him. So it was, where
Yeah.
can I get in this team?
Yeah, I suppose that was a little bit frustrating, Luke, wasn't it? Because, as you say, fans are very judgmental, particularly on social media now. So how can you give your absolute best when you're not playing your best position so many different times? Let's come on to you leaving Tottenham, because in a previous interview that I read somewhere that you said that you felt that Glenn Hoddle didn't trust you as much as George Graham, so you headed out the door.
I don't remember saying that, but we'll revisit
Okay.
it now. So what happened was, obviously, I felt like I was making good progression under Jules Graham. Enjoyed playing under him, and obviously he leaves really quickly before the semi-final of the FA Cup. But in the meantime, I'd been offered a couple of new deals by Spurs because I was kind of still on mediocre money. Let's put it that way. So I think everyone knows when you come through the ranks at any football club, unless you're a superstar, they don't tend to look after you. You don't get the going rate, if you like, for your position in the squad.
Well,
So
I was gonna mention this because I also read somewhere that when you left Spurs and joined Charlton, you then were on about 4 or 5 times more money than what you were at Spurs. Surely that can't be true.
just doing the maths now. Yeah, about 4 times. And
Wow.
it wasn't big. It wasn't big money either. It wasn't crazy
Yeah.
money. So you come out of the reserves, you get like a standard pro. I think I had one increased deal when I got into the first team, which was like, I think even my family were like, "Oh, is that it?" type thing. And then they were negotiating again, and by this time I'm a regular in England under 21s. I'm playing well under George Graham. I think I'd played about 10 games on the bounce, perhaps. And then the figures came in, and it was just like underwhelming. But it's not all about money. But I just felt like I'd earned the right to be on better money than what they had offered. And I think Charlton they'd only been in the Premier League for a year, and to go there and suddenly be offered like 4 times the amount you're on, it was hard to turn down. But the biggest thing was when I met Curbs, he said, "You need to play right back for 38 games in the Premier League." He said,
Mm.
"I can offer you that." And do you know what? I'd never really thought about it. But looking back, I was in danger of becoming a utility player at Spurs. And that's probably what I was. Um, so Curbs was right. I made the move, got a better deal, and got the opportunity to play right back where I saw my career being anyway.
Do you think there's similarities in that with someone like Archie Gray now at Spurs about being a utility player, just fitting in wherever Spurs need someone? Because that's kind of what he's done so far since joining from Leeds.
Yeah, I feel a little bit sorry for him, really. I think he's done a great job up until a point playing centre back, but I think you need to dip young lads in and out. In a struggling side when we was conceding a lot of goals, I think he probably could have done with a bit of a rest, but he was playing well there. But also, what's happened then is Bergval's gone into centre midfield when perhaps that would have been a toss of a coin who would have got that opportunity at the time.
Mm.
So Archie Gray's playing centre back out of position. Bergval makes kind of a midfield position his own, and then Archie's now scratching around trying to get opportunity.
Luke, July 2001, of course, you left Spurs. Charlton paid £3 million plus £250,000 at the end of each season for the first 4 seasons that Charlton remained in the Premier League. That seems quite a complicated contract for back then. I know contracts are very complicated now. How did you feel about leaving White Hart Lane? I know, of course, you said about Stephen Carr. It was very difficult to get in front of him. But, being a Spurs fan, playing a fair few minutes, and now we're talking about playing under Glenn Hoddle as well. How did it feel leaving?
Yeah, mixed emotions, really. There was a couple of things. Obviously, there was the lack of a decent contract put in front of me. Also, the fact that Curbs was right. I do need to play right back. And at the age of 22, I think I was then, I needed to stamp down that position, really. So I wasn't going to be able to do that at Spurs. Stephen Carr was perhaps the best or one of the top 2 or 3 right backs in the Premier League. And he was performing to such a high level, which actually was great for me in training because I could see the level of one of the best right backs in the league. So when I'm training, I'm mirroring him, thinking, right, that's the top level. So if I can get close to that, I've got half a chance here. And just going back to your question, obviously being a Spurs fan, it was really difficult to leave. But Spurs had bought a couple of players similar age to me for about £1 million, Anthony Gardner and Gary Doherty. Great lads, got on well with them. But I felt like under George Graham, I'd fought so hard to get in the team, and then when a manager switches over again, it's kind of a clean slate again for everyone. And then they brought in a couple of youngsters. And I think on one of the occasions, I think he left me out and put the other guys in, which is obviously fine. But I just thought the deal they've offered me is not great. They've bought 2 youngsters who can play centre-back. I'm not going to be able to play right-back. So everything put together kind of gave me the answer that maybe I need to go to further my career, which being a Spurs fan was difficult.
Look, when you talk about contracts, of course, during your time at Spurs, Alan Sugar was the chairman, and then, of course, it changed over to Daniel Levy, who is now no longer at Tottenham. What did you ever have to do with both chairmen? Anything?
Not a lot. I remember being a 19-year-old, and if we lost, like Alan Sugar would come into the change. If we won as well, he'd come into the change room after the game. And he's such an imposing figure that I just thought, like, if we lost, I wonder if he thinks that I'm not good enough and that he thinks that, why we've got this kid in the squad. But then obviously that would have been his job to got a stronger squad with senior pros. But yeah, when he used to come in, I used to have that feeling, oh, he's the boss of this club. And regarding Levy, I didn't have lots to do with Daniel Levy, but he was the chairman that obviously dealt with me leaving, and I think he changed the goalpost right at the end. So maybe that's why the deal was a little bit more complicated than it could have been, because I think it was done for a certain price, and then my agent rang me to say like it might be off, and then it was on again. But it was a lot of money back then, actually, for a right back. Well, someone who hasn't even played right back really. So Charlton took a chance.
When you were a Spurs player, did you have the feeling that there was ambition for the club to do better and want to win more trophies?
No, I think it was in a transitional period where mid-table, everyone knew mid-table wasn't good enough, but was they going to spend the money to have a go at getting back into the European positions? So there's a lot of disillusioned senior players when I obviously got an opportunity in the squad and perhaps outworked some of them to get an opportunity into the team, because I think some of them had decided that my days are up here a little bit, and some of them are on good deals, I think, and perhaps thought that George Graham coming in wasn't for them. And I think once I got in, I don't think I left the squad again. I think I mentioned this before. It is strange being a young lad in a football club where obviously you are good enough, because once you're given the opportunity, like I never left the squad again. Yet you're in this kind of dead end like reserve group where it kind of felt like no one really cared about you, if I'm honest, at that stage. But yeah, it is strange where you get an opportunity, then you don't leave the squad again. And I think having a few disillusioned senior players around gave me an opportunity to go, right, I can move these out of the way and get opportunities to play.
So, as a young player, then Luke, who were the people that kind of looked after you as a young player to make sure that you were all right and you were doing all right and you felt all right in that environment, and who were the mouthpieces and the leaders in that team at the time?
Yeah, I mean, there was a few that were great for me, and not like putting an arm around you, come on, mate, you'll be all right. Just absolutely ripping you to shreds and making you feel part of it straight away. So God bless him. Justin Edinburgh was one of them, an
Yeah.
infectious character. He was absolutely brilliant with me, non-stop taking the Mickey out of me, but in a good way, And Darren Anton was fantastic. Funny man. People don't realise how funny Darren is, and generally his humour is belittling players that are not quite as good as him. So we had a good laugh in training at times. But yeah, I would say that, and obviously on the pitch, Sol looked after me. In a way that playing centre back, I think he took it upon himself to be the leader in a senior pro. And I mentioned before that when back then teams would play two up front, and they generally go direct to the big man. So as the ball was in the air, if it was from a free kick or the goalkeeper, me and Sol would switch. So Sol would go up to challenge the header, and I'd go in behind him. And if anything, well, on the rare occasions that he lost the header, I was obviously tidying up, but the amount of times I would go to drop off and Sol would just come through and win it. I can count on one hand the amount of headers he lost.
Look, when I asked you the question about the ambition earlier, I was going to mention Teddy Sheringham. Of course, at your time at Spurs, you would have seen him leave Manchester United, come back to Tottenham. He won all those trophies at Old Trafford. Do you think that we're going to see a very similar thing with Harry Kane?
What, coming back?
Yeah.
I hope so. I hope so, because I can see Harry Kane being able to play almost as long as Teddy did. He's so clever. And I think we're seeing in his game at the minute, there's a lot of times when he's dropping deep and starting to create. So I think he could perhaps do that a bit like Teddy did when he dropped into that sort of number 10 role. But you might even see Harry Kane playing as a midfielder when he gets into his, late 30s, because I think he's got such technical ability, and he knows the game. He knows what's around him at all times, and he can pick a pass like no one.
Yeah. Now, you had 6 seasons at Charlton. How would you describe your time there? Because, of course, you won the Player of the Year award in 2005. Charlton then got relegated in 2006, and then you end up leaving. And I also read in multiple places that you and Alan Kirbishley didn't get on. Is that true?
No, love Curbs.
Okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely love Curbs. Got nothing but good things to say about him. Obviously, if you're a player and you're with a manager for 5 years, there's going to be times where you're scrutinised for your performance, and you have a bit of a conversation about it. But I never fell out with Curbs at all. I think I read somewhere before that someone had said that I put a transfer request in as well, but I never did that either.
Yeah, I read
So
that as
yeah,
well. Yeah.
no, yeah,
It's
no, yeah, you can't
it's
believe
interesting,
everything
Luke,
dream.
isn't it? Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Um,
love Curbs.
yeah. Of course, you then went on to play for Middlesbrough, and you scored an absolute weldy at the Riverside against Tottenham, and you celebrated.
Yeah, I also, it's really difficult. You know, when you leave your team that you supported all your life. I remember playing Spurs the first 2 times, and I wanted to smash absolutely everyone to let everyone know you've made a mistake. So I remember being so up for the game. I think we'd done a double over Spurs the next year when I was at Charlton. We actually beat Chelsea twice as well. So we'd done a double over Chelsea and Spurs. And I just remember being so up for those games.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons was I think we signed Bunchachayevic as well. And we signed a few defenders, and I thought I don't think they're better than me, and I feel like you're making a mistake here, and I want to prove you,
Yeah.
wrong for letting me go. That type of feeling. But so I went from supporting Tottenham, playing for Tottenham, to now absolutely wanting to beat them as much as I could. So it was a real strange mixture of feelings.
That was one hell of a goal, Luke, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't think I would ever be able to do that again. And I think actually Gus Poyet actually said Luke Young's never hit a shot like that in his life. And yeah, I've got to be honest, he's absolutely right.
Is there any players over the years, multiple clubs, that you didn't get along with?
Any players?
Yeah. We can skip that question if you don't want to.
No, yeah, I wouldn't say there was anyone that I've got a hatred of that I used to play against. But obviously, you have tussles with wingers, don't you? And back then, as a fullback, if the ball went out to the wing and you had half a chance to leave one on them early, you'd kind of get away with it without getting a yellow. So there was a few players that I had sort of tussles with over the years. Harry Kewell would be one. I don't think Harry Kewell particularly liked me. I used to try and kick him as much as I could. I used to try and kick Robert Pires as much as I could to try and slow them down. But yeah, generally as a fullback, your job is to try and make it as difficult for the winger as possible. So if it would be anyone, it would be a lot of wingers that I had to come up against week in, week out in the Premier League.
Luke, I was listening to the first episode of of your new podcast, More Than a Name. Talk to us about Thierry Henry playing against him in the North London derby.
Yeah, I think when Thierry Henry came in, the levels went up again. I felt like he had a bit of everything. So he had that pace that was electrifying. So you didn't want to get too tight in case he obviously knocked it past you and went. But if you dropped off him, he could also pick a pass. And when you've got Ashley Cole bombing down the left and Bobby Pires popping inside, and then Henry, they all used to come down my side, and sometimes it was super difficult to deal with.
Yeah. Luke, let's carry on talking about your career, because 4 seasons at Aston Villa, and as I said at the very start, what a career you've had, playing for some great clubs and playing all these years in Premier League football. You were an unused sub in the League Cup final against a very, very good Manchester United under Ferguson. And am I right in saying in 2010 you nearly signed for Liverpool?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I don't know whether it was 2010 or 2011. I think it was 2010. Yeah, I'd found myself out the side a little bit at Villa, but I still felt like I was performing well. I was playing left back and right back, but majority of my time I was playing left back. And the deal was on. I could have gone. I actually turned it down. And the reason I turned it down was I felt like I was going to Liverpool as backup left back and backup right back. So I thought they felt like they was probably getting a player that could play both sides, but wasn't going to be first choice. Maybe I could have put a bit of pressure on Glenn Johnson, and can't remember who was playing left back at the time. The deal was going to be for the same amount of years, and the deal was going to be for the same amount of money. And I think I was 30, 31, and I'd had issues with my hip a lot of my career, majority of my career. And I just felt if I was going to go to Liverpool Football Club, I would have rather have gone at 26, 27, 28, not 31. And I just felt that when I weighed it all up, it just wasn't the deal for me,
So you don't regret it?
I would like to have experienced wearing that shirt, listening to that crowd running out at Anfield. But when I look back at what actually happened to Liverpool during that season, and a lot of players went there, didn't work out for a lot of players under Roy Hodgson. So I don't think it would have been a success, just for the fact that even if you'd have played well, the team, I think they ended up coming 7th or something, maybe that season. So all in all, no regrets. The only regrets I've got in football is going to Wembley 3 times and never starting, never coming on. That's that still wrangles me to this day.
Luke, you spent 3 seasons at QPR, and this is when all of the injury problems started. And in your second season at QPR, you didn't play a single game. And in the last season, you played 1 game. Of course, Mark Hughes, Harry Redknapp. What was it like working under Harry Redknapp, by the way?
Well, I didn't really work under him, if I'm honest, Chris. by the time Harry came in, I was still trying to come back from my first hip operation, and he actually pulled me in. Do you know when you can change the squad, you've got to do the squad, your Premier League squad for the second part of the season. And he
Yeah.
said, "How you feeling?" I said, "Well, I'm nowhere near it at the minute." He said, "I'm going to put you in my 25-man squad." So really difficult for me to say this, but I said, "Harry, I don't think you should." And he said, "What? Don't you fancy it?" So I said, "Well, I'm just nowhere near it." And he went, "Well, I'm going to put you in." I said, Harry, I don't think you should put me in there. Like I'm nowhere near it." And deep down, I knew that perhaps my career was over, but I was going to keep going and going and going to see how far I could get and see how close I could get to first team football again. But there's no way that, well, it was proven in the next 2 years that I could do all right in little five-a-sides in training, but if you put me on a big pitch against a flying winger, twisting and turning, I was kind of shot. So
Mm.
he probably thought like he doesn't fancy it, this lad. But when you know, you know, and he would have been wasting a space putting me in that squad.
Luke, I asked you about any players you didn't get along with, any managers that you had a bust up with at all during your career.
I wouldn't say bust up. I had a couple of sort of conversations, but in front of the squad with Martin O'Neill, and Martin doesn't really like, if you like, kind of question training, like what we're doing, or should we be doing something else. He doesn't like it, and he pulled us all in, and he said apparently Luke knows better than anyone what we're going to do, and I just said, okay, if you're going to try and make me look stupid in front of the squad, then let's just leave it. And then I went into the shower after that, and I was going to Ireland the next day on pre-season training, and one of the coaches came to me, John Robinson, and he said, "Luke, do you want to come to Ireland tomorrow or not?" And I just thought it was a strange thing to ask a player like who's part of the squad. So I didn't really say anything, and then the squad list went up, and I wasn't on it. So do you know what though? They went to Ireland, and they treated it like a stag do. So by the time they come back, they was less fit than when they went. And I trained with Kevin McDonald, the reserve manager, who really puts you through it. And they came back, and they were, you know, probably I would say less fit than they went, and I was absolutely flying. So yeah, no, I wouldn't say I had bust ups because it wasn't the way I was, but I clashed a little bit with Martin.
Yeah, yeah. Luke, talk to me about representing your country. Of course, 7 caps for England. May 2005, you called up for the first time. How did that come about? Who called you? What happened? How did you feel?
Yeah, there was rumours earlier on in the season coming through Charlton, like through someone at the club, that I might be getting close. So I think it was the season had finished. It was like the off season. I was on a break, and someone from the club called me to say, "Listen, you've been included in a provisional England squad for the tour to the USA." And yeah, just over the moon, and you get the butterflies start kicking in, thinking, "Well, what does that mean then? When are we going? Who's in the squad?" And it was a little bit of a shadow squad. There were some big hitters that weren't in it, but still, to go away on your first England squad was brilliant. I absolutely loved it.
How much interaction does an England player during the training camps? How much interaction do you actually have with the manager? Because whenever you see these training clips, it seems like that they don't actually talk very much. Do you actually have much one-to-one with an England manager?
I didn't have nothing at all.
Wow.
Sven was quite quiet. So it was kind of you're training, they're watching it, and you're thinking, I feel like I'm training well. I think I'm doing all right, but never really had a one-on-one or an arm around you to say like, listen, I'm thinking of playing you, or if you do this, can you do that? It would come more from Steve McLaren, who was the assistant at the time.
It's funny though, Luke, isn't it? Because 7 caps, but you worked under so many different England managers.
Yeah, I had a conversation with someone today about this. So I got 7 caps, but they were all within like a 3 month like time period. The 2 first caps were in that USA tour. I came on against the USA for my debut, and
Yeah.
then I pulled my thigh a little bit in training, but still made myself available. I don't know whether I might have started or not, but I got the last 5 minutes of the Colombia game. But really, I felt that my sort of time with England started when Gary Neville was injured, and we're playing Wales in a qualifier, and it was either myself or Phil Neville for the opportunity to play. And Phil would generally have played because I'd never been sort of in the squads before, but I got the nod, which was fantastic. And yeah, I remember like the night before thinking this is huge, and probably the most nervous I've ever been for a football game. But when I look back, it was probably one of the best days of my life, I would say.
How would you like to be remembered as a Premier League footballer, Luke? What would you like fans to say about you?
Consistent would be enough for me. I think when you're a defender, you want to be consistent. You want the manager to know what he's going to get from you. You don't want a player that 1 week's a 3 out of 10 and the next week he's an 8 and then he's a 4 and then he's a 9. Like that, managers don't want that. So I think I managed to be fairly consistent. Nothing out of the spectacular, but I think when you're a manager, you want to know what you're going to get from your lads, and I think hopefully most of them felt like putting me in the starting 11, they knew what they were going to get from me.
Luke, I wanted to ask you about David Ginola. What was it like being in training against him? That must have been difficult.
Yeah, it was brilliant, and probably the best player I played with, especially on my debut year and then the next year, he was incredible. I remember we played Watford in the FA Cup at the Lane, and he absolutely terrorised the right back. I felt so sorry for him, and he actually terrorised Gary Neville at White Hart Lane as well. So on his day, he was unplayable, and 6'1", whatever he is, absolute Adonis, but could move with such grace as well. But yeah, I mean, that was sharing the pitch with him as a young player was incredible, but that made me a bit nervous as well. People like Sol, Darren Anderton, Les, Ginola, when you're playing and you're on the same pitch as them, you're thinking, I can't let these boys down. And that was the feeling I had as being a young kid, is thinking like, I've got an opportunity here to play with these guys and I can't let them down. That was the kind of feeling I went into games with.
What was David Ginola like in the dressing room? Was he quite loud? Was he a leader in there?
He was loud. He was loud. He was a leader. He was part of the dressing room. Good humour about him. He used to walk in the dressing room and just had an aura about him. You could feel it. Les was the same. They could open the changing room door, walk in, didn't even have to say anything, and you just knew that the main men had come into the building.
Luke, what did you make of Ramon Vega in a Spurs shirt? He comes on this channel quite a lot, and he always tells us about him playing that cup final with a broken ankle.
Loved Ramon. Ramon was a great character, Ramon. He, obviously, when he was injured, I got an opportunity to play, and then he got back fit. And there was a little period of time where George Graham would play me maybe against Coventry because they had Huckabee and Bellamy. And then we'd go and play Everton, and it might be Duncan Ferguson. So I would drop out, but he'd put me back in against Sheffield Wednesday, like Carboni and Di Canio. And then I'd be back out. So George Graham used me well, and used me when I think the forwards were a little bit more dynamic and quick. And he used Ramon for his strengths, which is obviously exactly what you would do as a manager.
Yeah, I know you spoke very fondly about George Graham. Whatever ex-players I've spoke to about George Graham, they've all said exactly the same as what you have. They've all spoke very fondly about him. Let me ask you about Tottenham today. Are you still a Spurs fan? Do you still watch us? Do you go to the Tottenham Stadium? Have you seen games?
Yeah, went to the final in Bilbao, took my boy. Absolutely loved it. I didn't even realise that it was a poor game by all accounts. I'll get like a load of text messages after saying what a shambles of a game that is. And when you're watching it and you're so desperate for Tottenham to win, you don't really even see it. And my boy loved it. And there was this guy in front of us, and I think he said he was 80. And he turned round to us and he said, half time this is, he said, I hope we hang on. He said, you're all right. And he pointed to my boy who's 14. He said, but I ain't got long left. And I just cracked up laughing. He's thinking like, he's going, please, can we hold on for this next 45 minutes to see me win a European Cup final?
We so needed it, though, Luke, didn't we? Because, everyone around me, I think everyone was in tears. I don't think there was a dry eye in that stadium that night in the Spurs end because, like you said, we were so desperate for that trophy.
Yeah, everyone was crying around me as well. And I just realised that I think I've been to the last 3 times that Spurs have won a cup. So I think if we go back, I was in the squad, the Worthington Cup. I went to watch Woodgate score the winner against Chelsea, and then the Bilbao one. Am I missing any there?
I don't think so. No.
Yeah, so I think I've been live to the last 3 times we've won a cup final. So if the lads ever get to another one, then someone needs to get me a ticket.
Yeah. Talking about Spurs today, what have you made of Tottenham this season under Thomas Frank? And I know there's going to be a lot of questions all in one here. The amount of managers that we have gone through since Mauricio Pochettino left or was sacked in 2019, of course, a couple of months before taking us to a Champions League final, having not spent money in multiple transfer windows. This merry-go-round of managers, what have you made of it since 2019? Because to all of us fans, we want to see ambition. We want the club to, do things in the right way. We want to see money spent, but spent in the correct manner on the right players. What have you made of it all, Luke? Because since moving to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, the stadium should be a game changer. We should be always in that conversation with trophies now.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think obviously we've got probably the best training ground and the best ground in the country now. So everything away from what's on the pitch is in place. And now it's whether we can get it right on the pitch and spend money well. Hindsight's a great thing, and it's really easy for us to say we should have just give Pochettino whatever he wanted. And I think any Spurs fan would probably say that would have been the best route for us. But, Ange has won a European trophy for us and probably a little bit unlucky to lose his job, but you can't come just above the relegation zone as a Tottenham manager. So yeah, he'd have been disappointed to have gone. But Thomas Frank coming in, it's the home form's been a worry, and not just not picking up the points, but the performances at home haven't been great. I haven't seen, not going to lie, I haven't seen everything, but what I have seen is it's not been great at home. And if anything, that's normally the place where we can pick up the majority of our points. But maybe everyone's seeing it as a bit of a day out. It's a great stadium. Maybe it's a lovely day out for people, and they're like, can't wait to go and play away at Tottenham this year.
Well, there's been 6 Premier League home games under Thomas Frank so far this season, Luke, and we've seen the fans boo 4 times out of those 6. Now, when you talk about style of football, surely the players must sense that in terms of 1 minute it's all attack. I get the whole Thomas Frank, he's making us a hard team to beat and concede goals. He's certainly worked on that, but to Tottenham, even as a former player, playing the Tottenham way is extremely important to the fans, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I think football has changed a lot though. So in my day, you'd win the ball back, and generally you try and get the ball forward as quick as you could into your front men or to your danger men. So we'd try and get the ball to David on the left or straight into the front man's feet, and you would try and get up the pitch as quickly as possible and try and score. But with the new way of slow build and recycling the ball round, I don't think fans love to see that. Any fan, really, no matter what club you're playing for, it's not a good spectacle when that starts happening. But I understand you need to get a grip of the game. But I think when you're at home, there's an onus on you to really go at it from the first whistle and get the crowd going, really, because if you can get the crowd on your side early and really have a go at teams, you can put the game to bed at White Hart Lane at half time if you hit them fast. But yeah, I mean, I don't agree with booing, because I think fans boo a little bit too early now. In my day, you might have 6, 7, 8 sort of dodgy games and then the boos would start, but you can be half time of the first game of the season now and the crowd can start booing at half time. So I'm not a big fan of it really, but I understand their frustrations.
Would you say football fans or even Spurs fans can be impatient? Because we hear this all the time saying, give it time, be patient, time, will it will work under different managers. And also, if I ask you the direct questions of, in November 2019, was it the correct decision to sack Pochettino? And also, was it the correct decision to sack Jose 6 days before a final? And you mentioned Ange there. Was it the correct decision to sack him and bring Thomas Frank in?
I could understand the Ange one, even though I felt like he'd done enough to be given another opportunity. But I can understand that one. But I would take Jose Mourinho back and Pochettino back if Thomas Frank doesn't do as well as we want him to do. I feel like they're still 2 of the best managers around, and you do have to give people more time. There's a new sort of trend in football where it's just, let's just change it. let's just change it. Let's just change it. And
Yeah.
before you know it, you end up having like little groups of players from 2 or 3 managers that weren't in one manager's faults. Then they get another chance, and then they're not. Every manager's buying new players in all the new windows.
Yeah.
So you end up with this mismatch of a squad where some don't feel part of it. Some have just been bought and are trying to integrate themselves into a new manager's ideas. But you do need a bit of time and a bit of stability. So once you feel like you've got the right guy, you really should give him at least 2 years. I'm not a fan of turning around and saying, "Oh, this isn't working," unless there's glaring, obvious reasons that you should make a change.
Luke, of course, when you played, did you notice that the manager, when they wanted to buy a player or they purchased a player, it was mainly their decision? It's a player that they wanted as the manager of the football club. Because now, of course, there's all these sporting directors, and the clubs really make the decisions and buy the players for the manager.
Yeah, I think that's a bit of a worry when that does start happening. I think Jurgen Klopp spoke well about it. They had a committee at Liverpool, but at the end of the day, he was still the one who had the deciding vote, and it was his decision. But his staff had to kind of press him and push him to sign Salah. Now we all know what he's gone on to do at Liverpool Football Club. So there
Yeah.
is there is merit on a few different people, as long as the manager trusts their opinion, being involved in the process. But I think once players are getting signed for you, and you've then got to put them into a side and make it work, and they're not perhaps your players, I think that's when problems can start.
Do you think it was the correct decision by Tottenham Hotspur to let Heung-min Son go in the summer?
I don't know the ins and outs of the conversations that they were having. Maybe the player just felt like it was time for him to move on to pastures new. So sometimes you respect how well Son's done for Tottenham Hotspur, and if he felt like he wanted a new challenge, then he goes with everyone's blessings for what a good player he was for us.
Luke, you mentioned Poch there a couple of times. Would you like to see him back one day? And do you think it's going to be realistic that that will happen?
I can see him back one day, yeah, in the future. I don't want to talk about it now because it's not fair on Thomas Frank. But you saw Levy having a conversation with him not too long ago at a cafe, and everyone starts thinking maybe he was, coming in again then. But yeah, I would definitely think that he holds a special place for the club still, and I think he would jump at the chance to come back in the future if the chance arises.
I know, obviously, we've spoken a little bit about Daniel Levy and now his departure from Spurs, but the Lewis family, do you see anything changing in terms of Spurs now being really ambitious, going after, top players? Because we have this conversation a lot on the podcast with multiple different guests, and I think a lot of us agree, and certainly I do agree as well. The last world-class player that Spurs bought in, and I mean, when I say world-class, they were world-class at the time. We all say Jurgen Klinsmann back in 1994 in that summer. Do you think that things will change, Luke, in us going out and buying ready-made players to walk into this team? Because I know you've spoken a lot about your time as a youth player and getting that opportunity, which of course I love it when players come through the youth system, but when you want to compete for top honours, sometimes you need those players, ready-made players, to walk straight into the team and make a real impact.
Yeah. To answer your question, I don't think we would be in the market for a ready-made world-class player. I think we have to take them when there's the potential, like a Mickey van der Ven, for instance. I mean, there's not a centre-back in the world football that can do what he's doing at the minute when he gets going and goes on those runs. So I think we have to take the players that are, there's potential there, but we have to then turn them into world-class players. I don't think that we're going to go out and spend 100 million, 120 million on a ready-made world-class player. I can't see it. So we're at that next level. But there's clubs that do it well. The Brightons of this world, the Southamptons of this world. A little while ago, that they're getting these players, and then before you know it, the Van Dijks of this world, and Brighton have had quite a few go through now where the bigger clubs are buying them for big money, but they've spotted them first, so that's what we need to do. But going back to the young lads, I don't think they're going to get opportunity anymore. They've got to go out on loan, but still have your parent club being Tottenham, for instance, like a Mikey Moore, for instance, someone like that. He's not going to get the opportunity because it's too important. The points at the weekend mean too much nowadays that you can't really bet a youngster into your side.
Yeah. Luke, we're going to finish with 50 quick questions. And I know when I told you this before we started, you were like, wow, 50 questions. But you can give me some quick answers here. Now, to talk about your career and your development, number one, what first inspired you to pursue football professionally?
Watching my brother play. He went through the Tottenham youth team. He got a couple of years pro and then ended up having, I think he had 13 or 14 years at Bournemouth. So we'd be watching my brother and watching him every Sunday, as a little mascot.
You mentioned Theo Foley there when you were a Tottenham youth player, but which youth coach or mentor had the biggest impact on your early development? And I know we haven't even spoken about Chris Hughton as well.
Yeah, I'll probably name a few. So Bobby Arbour, coming through the youth ranks, I had Bobby Arbour. I had Des Bulpin, who believed in me a lot. Patsy Holland, loved working with Patsy Holland. And then when you get the opportunity to become a pro, no better person to be coached by than Chris Hughton. So I'm very lucky to have had my footballing upbringing through Tottenham Hotspur and to have worked with those coaches.
Luke, can I ask about, you mentioned Pat Holland there. I saw Pat Holland actually last year at some of the Spurs under-21 games. So he's still kicking around. You mentioned about reserve games earlier. Is that a bit of a downer for players now not to get reserve team football? Because yes, there's under-21s. It's great for the development players. But for the players who are, say, 25, 26, 27, not getting regular game time, is that not a bit of a negative thing for them not to be able to get any game time at all? Because those reserves were very, they were a good chance for players to get the minutes.
Yeah, I don't know whether the rules have changed, but you can drop 2 or 3 down, I think. So if you've got players that are not playing and they need a game, they can play in the 21.
But they don't. They don't.
No, because it's not great. I've been to a lot of them. When I was doing the agency work for a little while, I worked at a football agency, and you go and watch under-21 games, and they were just a continuation of youth team football, in my opinion. There was no sort of seniors playing that where you could learn off, and I had to mark season strikers when I was in the reserves, and that's where you learn the most, is when you're coming up against men. So if you're playing against it's age category football again, I don't think anyone benefits from it. So in my opinion, young players should go on loan, no matter what level it is, to play men's football as quickly as possible, as soon as they're physically able.
Yeah. When did you realise you had a real chance of making it in the Premier League?
I don't think I knew I was going to have a chance of making it in the Premier League, but halfway through my first year as an apprentice, things started to click for me. I got stronger. Training every day was great for me. And I got quite quick from nowhere. I was quite surprised. And I just felt I was playing in the youth team games and it was starting to become comfortable. So I was thinking, well, maybe I got a chance here.
Luke, what was the biggest difference that you noticed from stepping up from youth football to senior football?
How much it mattered. 3 points was absolutely everything. In youth football, you might lose 3-2 to West Ham in the South East counties, and obviously you're a little bit disappointed. But as soon as you start losing football matches and you're on telly and your manager's on your case for not getting tight enough, that's when you realise how serious it is.
If you didn't play football, what would you have done?
No idea. I literally I can't even give you an answer. I have no idea.
Were you good in school?
No, I was okay. Okay. But then when obviously football looked like I might have a chance to get an apprenticeship, I didn't down tools or anything like that. I just stopped enjoying doing the hard graft at school. So I would have found a way of making some kind of career in football, I think.
Now, talking about your Premier League experiences, how would you describe your first Premier League match experience?
Massive high and a massive low, mixture of feelings. So to get your debut, unbelievable for the club I'm at. Not only that, it was my club I supported. hit the crossbar in the last minute. Could have been a draw. Lost the game to a London rival. So a mixture of emotions. But obviously, I felt then that I'd made a first team appearance, which is, as a kid, I've just felt if I don't play another game for Tottenham Hotspur, I've started in the Premier League. So that was the feeling.
You must have kept that shirt, surely.
Do you know what? I don't think I did. I don't think back then you actually got to take your shirts. They were like still got washed, and then you only had two for the next game. Like I don't think you like now the guys they can take whatever shirts they want, but you literally couldn't take your shirts.
Yeah, I think you're right. Actually, I think some of these players had the shirt all season, and it got washed. And nowadays they have one for the first half and they have one for the second half. So yeah, how different it is. Which stadium was your toughest to play, and why?
I never liked Craven Cottage, and funnily enough, I didn't like Loftus Road either, even though I ended up playing for QPR. Really tight. Pitch was always bobbly. Pitch was always small. So when you're an away team and you're getting the ball and you're looking for options, and it's hard enough playing away from home anyway, just looks so tight to try and find a pass.
Luke, if you'd have picked out like a handful of players that you faced in your career, who would be the toughest?
Thierry Henry, Cristiano Ronaldo, and Damien Duff gave me a torrid one day when I was off the pace a little bit, should we say? And he ran me ragged when he was, I think he was at Blackburn actually, yeah.
When you talk about Ronaldo there, that must have been one hell of an experience facing him. I know there's this very common question that people always ask, Ronaldo or Messi. Who do you think is the greatest?
I think Messi. Just I prefer the way obviously Messi plays the game, and I don't think you should just be judged on goals either. I think we infatuated with numbers nowadays, like how many goals you score. And listen, one of the things I always say when I'm asked is why can't we just celebrate both of them? You know,
Yeah,
I actually
very
loved
true.
playing against him. I actually loved
Yeah.
playing against Ronaldo, like testing myself. I used to try and get as tight as I could and had some really good battles. But when you're playing against Man United and I'm playing at Charlton, the possession's like 70-30. It's just wave after wave after wave. You might stop him 6 times, but the 2 times he gets away from you, he scores. So it's always difficult.
Did you sense, like when you face a player like that and you play against a player with that amount of ability, did you ever think that he would go on to achieve what he has done?
Towards the end of his Man United career, yes, but not in his early days. There was questions whether he was just a show pony, just a trickster. You know, there's been plenty of them over the years. We had Jose Dominguez, but in training you couldn't get near him. He was incredible, but he couldn't quite put it together like match day or get a run in the team. But he was incredible in training, Jose Dominguez, and there was maybe people thinking that Ronaldo might be similar in his early days, but he ended up being the last 2 years he was at Man United. He was ready to go and become a Galactico at Real Madrid, and yeah, no, I'm not really surprised to be honest.
Surely, Luke, Jose Dominguez got you to do the backflip, no?
Got me to do it.
Any of you?
Absolutely
Any of you?
no chance of me doing
it. What's been the best goal of your career, or the best goal you've been involved in?
Personally, the one I scored against Tottenham at the Riverside. Yeah, it would definitely just be that one, I think.
Yeah. What would be the most memorable match in your career?
Full England debut, Wales at the Millennium Stadium.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Your 7 caps, none of them were at Wembley.
No, it's another disappointment. So there was something with me and Wembley, there was definitely some kind of hoodoo going on because 3 visits to either cup finals or semi-finals. And then when I got the opportunity to play for England, well, I think Wembley's getting redeveloped and they were all at Old Trafford.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, good record anyway. Six wins and 1 defeat. You take that.
We don't talk about the defeat.
No, no, we've glossed over that already. How intense was the pressure playing in the Premier League?
Yeah, all consuming really. I think I've mentioned before when I've done interviews that I had to be absolutely bang on it in training, feeling as sharp as I could, and my preparation had to be, you know, top drawer to play at the level I did and for as long as I did. So it becomes quite draining to keep yourself going, like game after game, training session after training session. So it is really, really intense to play at the top level. You get some players that are so technically brilliant that maybe it's not as intense for them. You know, maybe they can have a couple of days in training where they're just going through the motions a little bit. But when your job is pretty much every week is to stop their best player, at one stage, the left wingers seem to be the best player in everyone's team. There was like Robin, Pires, Duff, Giggs, like Ronaldo. Everyone who played on the left was incredible. And even when you used to go down to Newcastle, there was Laurent Robert, was it?
Yeah.
The left footer there. Harry Kewell, like everyone's best player was a left winger. So my job every week is to try and stop the best player of the opposition when you're only getting 30-40% possession yourself, you know, so it's tough going.
Yeah, I love all these name drops, by the way. It's a real, take me back in time. What's something fans might be surprised to learn about a Premier League footballer, Luke?
That probably they're not a robot. So when you're watching from the stands and you're thinking, why didn't he get tighter then? Why? Well, he don't look right. So most of the time you go into a game, talking about myself personally, I never felt 100%. You might have played Saturday, got a dead leg. You've just about trained Tuesday and you're playing Wednesday night. And you've even in the warm up, sometimes you're thinking, not sure here, but you end up playing and getting through it. But I think when you watch as a fan and you're watching the players play, you think they're robots, so you'll think they're 100% fit and ready to go, when often they're carrying niggles and they're just getting themselves out there. I had a lot of injections before games just to play. So that'd be one thing to, when you are watching, just be, you know, aware that perhaps some of those lads out there are really putting their body on the line to be out there in the first place.
I suppose you're a lot more forgiving than being an ex-footballer.
I am, to a certain point, but then I do get frustrated when I see fullbacks just letting crosses coming in now, and it seems to be acceptable now. I think in my day, if I'd let 3 or 4 crosses in, half time I'm getting annihilated by the manager, as if to say, "What are you doing? Stop the cross!" But I see them putting their hands behind their back now and just letting these crosses like fly into the box, and I don't understand the reasoning why, but it's a new trend.
How did you handle criticism from the media and the fans?
I quite liked it. Maybe I'm a bit strange in that way because I don't think anyone felt like I was going to be the one who came through at Spurs, even in my youth team. I wasn't like earmarked to be the next player to come through. So most of my career, I felt like sometimes I was proving people wrong a lot. So if someone wrote something bad about me or had a criticism of me, I would use that as fuel to like go out there and try and prove people wrong or to be better. So I actually didn't mind it. I quite liked it.
Who was the funniest teammate you had? And we would love to hear 1 or 2 Spurs stories if you got any.
From Spurs would probably be Justin or Shaggy, Darren Anderton. And I just remember we do keep ball, for instance, and it'll either be me, Stephen Clements, or Stefan Freund. He might give it to sometime. But when we're doing the keep ball, he'd be lending it. He'd never give it away ever. So if you got it, Stephen Clements got it and gave it away, he'd be saying, "Guys, the ball is your friend. It's not your enemy. Just watch me." And the ball would come into Shaggy. He'd keep it, get it back, keep it, get it back, keep it. It'd go into like me or maybe Stephen Clements. We might give it away. So he used to call us bomber, which meant like the ball is not a bomb. It is your friend. So he was just brilliant in trading Shaggy.
I'll tell you what, Luke, over the last few years, Darren Anderton plays on a lot of these Legends games, and I tell you, he has still got it. I think you've played in 1 or 2, haven't you, as well?
Yeah, I did before my hips like completely went. I played in a couple, but I haven't played in any type of football for about. I played in a game for Justin Edinburgh's foundation. Charlie gave me a call and wanted me to play, but that I hung him up after that game. So about 4 or 5 years now, I just can't do it with my hips. They kill me like for literally a week after.
Which manager influenced your playing style the most?
I don't think anyone influenced my playing style because I think it was just ingrained in me. And I found a way of forging a Premier League career by being fit, making runs when perhaps the winger doesn't want to stay with you. So I kind of learned what it took for me to get on in the Premier League. That makes sense. But I think I already had a real hard training work ethic anyway. And then people like George Graham or any manager really, they reward you for training well and training hard and then playing well at the weekend. So I don't think anyone really influenced my playing style because I think I already had that hunger to better myself and to try and be as good as I could be.
When you say reward, you mean like days off and stuff like that, is it?
No, I mean it's by staying in the team because
Oh,
that's what
okay.
all any player wants to do is play. If you're not playing, then you're not a happy player.
Yeah. Did at the time that you were at Tottenham, did that squad always get on? Did everyone always go on nights out together outside of football, and or did some people just keep themselves to themselves?
There are probably little groups that would have a night out, and I'd probably be out with the younger boys like Stephen Clements and Gower and things like that. But I just feel like at the time when George Graham come in, there was a few players that were coming sort of to the end of their powers that were a little bit disillusioned and probably felt like their days were up at the club. But we didn't have a huge squad, so
Yeah.
they're still training with the team that have got to go out at the weekend. So before you know it, there wasn't like mutiny within the squad, but there was a few players hanging around thinking like, how long until I can get out of here type feeling.
Mm. What training session or drill did you absolutely hate?
Standing around doing shape against no one but mannequins.
Yeah.
So a lot of managers do it, and for my hips, I think I mentioned obviously at numerous occasions. If I warmed up in training, I had to then go straight into like intense, dynamic kind of keep ball or a game or something. I couldn't then in like the coldest January stand around doing either set pieces or shape and then be asked to train after. I'd go back to square one and worse. I'd just go so stiff. So I used to hate shape. I used to love it when I could get around the pitch and get going and get a good sweat on.
Luke, this next one, what was the biggest tactical difference between managers you played under? So going from, say, George Graham to Glenn Hoddle, how different was that, for instance?
Yeah, I think Glenn wanted to play three at the back, so straight away there was a bit of a system change. And training, I would say I wasn't there for long with Glenn, but I felt like it was less intense and more ball work orientated. Whereas when I was with George Graham, it was about staying with your runner. Who let the runner go? And if you let your runner go, it'd make you do press ups. So there'd be times where David Ginola would be down for 3 press ups for letting his runner go and stuff like that. We used to do a game where it's 3v3s, and I loved it because my game was about running and getting the better and playing a 1-2 and getting on the end of it. And it used to make people do. He'd either give a penalty, I think, or make you do press ups if you let your runner go.
It sounds like from you talking here that you were definitely one of the best trainers.
I had to be. That was kind of my game, and I think even as a fullback, I used to always run like 11, 12k every game, and that was
Mm.
part of my game. Really, was to get up and down. If I wasn't running up and down and always involved in a game, then I wasn't going to be true to my best abilities, which was just trying to be involved at all times.
Luke, how did you adapt when playing through injuries or pain?
I think it was just what you did. I didn't want to miss a game. Hated missing a game. Hated being sub. Um, if I could get out there, I would. Majority of the time, you get through it and you're fine, and it was okay. But then there's the odd occasion where it was a mistake, but you only know it was a mistake when you lose the game and you couldn't really move. I remember playing for QPR. We played Liverpool at home, and we beat them on a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night, 3-2. And then the Saturday was Sunderland away. Now, I knew at this stage, I wasn't being honest to managers, but I knew I probably needed not to play the weekend. And in the warm
Yeah.
up, I couldn't move. And I think, is it McLean, the left winger? I think he's played at Wigan, and I think he might be at Wrexham now. Can't remember his first name. But like, I couldn't get near him, and there's no way I should have played. But those are the occasions where it backfires. But generally, I mean, I remember getting injections in warm-ups. And I remember getting an injection, actually, I won't drop the doctor in it, but at a corner in a Premier League game, I ran off to get an injection in my knee when I was at Charlton and we was trying to stay up. So
Yeah.
I think when it means that much to you, you'll do anything to play games.
Luke, when we've had Darren Anton on here, and he spoke about all of his injury issues, he actually called it shambolic, the medical staff and his medical experience at Tottenham. That's the word he used, shambolic. And I spoke to a couple of other players during that era as well, and they've said pretty much the same thing. Did you find the medical team to be shambolic? And surely it's going to be very different now to, players just saying to the manager, no, I'm fine to play, because of the medical science side of things nowadays.
Yeah, if I'm honest, I don't think it was just Tottenham, but I just think it was prehistoric back then. We had one physio for the first team, and then if you was in the resis or the youth team, you might have like an intern or something like that, but you didn't, like, sometimes you had to wait as a youth team player to get on a machine that probably didn't work anyway, like all day. So yeah, things hadn't moved on yet, and I think round about 2000s when things started to get a lot better. But I can understand what Darren's saying, but obviously that's through his experiences as well, because he obviously had a lot of troubles with reoccurring injuries and trying to get back fit and obviously breaking down again. So it's nothing new, though. There's players even in the modern game where sometimes physios can't find the answer to their problems.
One of our viewers here, Luke, says it was James McLean.
James McLean, that's correct. Yeah. Yes, I would have fancied myself against him on a good day and even on the Tuesday night, but having 3 days in between the games, I was at an age and my hips were deteriorating. But I wish I was more honest, because I think I could have played another 100 games and my hip wouldn't have gone if I'd have played Saturday and then maybe had Tuesday to train again.
Yeah.
But I would just do everything because that's the way, that I was kind of built, and I just wanted to not miss anything.
As I mentioned at the very start, 16 seasons in the Premier League, you only played one competitive game in the Championship. Would you have liked to have been one of those footballers that went down the leagues in the Championship, League One, League Two? Because you don't really see that anymore, do you?
Do you know what? I used to think I would do that. And I think without my hips having the issues that I did, I would have done that. And I would have played for as long as I could. Because any older player that I ever spoke to, they always said just play as long as you can. But when I was at QPR at the end, I knew that I probably couldn't even play National League level. I knew I knew my hips were that bad that twisting and turning against like a winger running at me, like I was shot. So unfortunately, I had a contract, and I was one of like probably about 100th on the list of the problems at QPR at that time. So I was kind of discarded and just trained with the under-21s. But I would have liked to have gone down the leagues and just played for as long as I could have, like Darren did. Darren went to Bournemouth and played, League Two football for a good few seasons.
What pre-match rituals or routines did you follow?
I used to start hydrating like on a Thursday after training. So loads of the lads would back me up on this, especially a few of the boys at Middlesbrough, because they used to take the mickey out of me. But I'd have this massive, like 2 litre bottle of Evian, and I would fill it with half Lucozade and half of the Evian in there. And I'd drink that sort of Thursday night, and then I'd refill it. So all day Friday, because I realised being hydrated was such an important thing for me as a player. So that was one of the things I do. I kind of probably had a bit of a set routine for match day, really. Beans on toast if it was a home game. And yeah, just more of a match day routine. No superstitions, really.
How did you stay motivated during the tough periods in your career?
I think you learn through what you've previously gone through. So obviously, if I had a bad time as a youngster, the only way that you get out of it is by training harder and working harder to put right what might be going wrong in your game. So I think once you do that, I realised fairly quickly that sulking about stuff or not training to the best of your ability, it doesn't help you. It's a massive hinder to you. So if you can put to bed a mistake that you made at the weekend, go in Monday ready to train and really put a good shift in and get a great sweat on, that was the best way that I felt you could recover from poor form, was just working harder in training.
Yeah. What's the most valuable mindset lesson that football has taught you?
I think just doing everything to the best of your ability. I think when you come out of football and obviously working in the football agency world for a little while and seeing how that works, if you ask someone to do something, it's not always guaranteed that they're going to do it. But if you had that mindset in football, there's no way you're going to make it to the top. And if you half-heartedly do a job that you've been given, then you won't play. So I think it's just always doing everything to the best of your ability.
Look, do you ever wonder what would have happened if you didn't leave Spurs? Because this next question I've got, how did you handle competition for your position within the squad? So if you'd have stayed at Spurs, do you think that things could have been different for you?
Not while Stephen was there, because I still believe that he was one of the best in the league and I was still learning my trade. But I do, when I think Kari got a bit of a knee injury and he had a bit of time out, and then obviously he went to Newcastle. And there was, my agent did tell me that there was a rumour that he had spoken to Damien Kamoli just as I was getting into the England squad. And I don't know whether Kamoli knew I'd already been at the club or not. And whether this is
Yeah.
true or not, I can only go on what I was said. And there was whispers that I was in a little group of options that they might consider having me back. And I do remember watching the right back berth not really being filled to the levels that they would want over the years, and thinking perhaps if I was still there, that might have been me. But then I might not have been given the opportunity to get all the games I did to then get recognised at England that I was given at Charlton.
Would you have liked to have gone back to Tottenham then?
At that stage, if Tottenham would have come in for me, yeah, I would have gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
What advice would you give anyone about dealing with pressure at elite level?
Oh, maybe to try and reframe it as it's a privilege to feel that feeling. That feeling of pressure is not everyone gets that. So
Yeah.
can you embrace it and feel privileged that you put yourself in a position to feel that sort of anxious feeling and the pressure to perform? And I think without that pressure, if you don't feel it, then you're not going to go out there and perform to the best of your ability. So maybe reframing it as a privilege. I've heard
I
that
love
before,
that.
actually. Yeah, I've heard it
Yeah,
before. And when
I love
someone
that
said
answer.
it, yeah, it really resonated with me when I heard it.
Yeah. Do you think that many footballers that you've perhaps played with or played against have taken football for granted?
Some have. I've spoke to players before, and maybe if their lifestyle was better outside of the game, that they would have played to a higher level and bits and pieces like that. But also, it's not built for everyone. So mentally, not everyone can put themselves through it week after week and get judged by thousands and social media and managers, coaches. You're continually getting judged as a footballer, and some people can't embrace it and take that forward, and they kind of shy away from it a little bit. And that's why you see, in my opinion, sometimes you see players at League One and Championship level that perhaps have got the ability to play higher, but they're quite
Mm.
comfortable in their little, being the best player in the league or one of the best players in a lower league.
Look, this next question is like behind the scenes. So, what does a typical day of training look like for a Premier League footballer? And from what you just said there, I want to flip it as well and ask you, what's the craziest things that you've seen a Premier League footballer do, either on the pitch or, probably more interestingly, off the pitch? Crazy things you're thinking, what the hell have you just done there?
Oh, it's a on the spot questions for me, that one. A day to day would be the lads that come in. If they have breakfast at the club, they get in early. If they have it at home, they might get in a little bit later. But then they start doing their own work nowadays. So they do their own activation or anything that they feel that they need to do before training. So there's sort of a pre-training sort of session first now called activation, and they'll do that. Then they'll go out and warm up, obviously, and do the session with the main group. They might even do their afters that they want to do, whether it's a weight session or whatever. And sometimes they would have maybe a team meeting. So there's all those different things for different days, really. Regarding, has anyone ever done anything absolutely mental?
What
Come back
about
to
on
me on
some of
that
the
one.
What about some of these trips away? You must have seen some. Can you give me a clean story, or perhaps not?
Trips away. Leave it with me. Let's come back to that one.
Right. How strict were the diet and the fitness expectations? Because when Ramon come on here, one of the times he's come on here, he said to us that, when he came to England, they were having breakfast and all of the players were having these fry-ups, and he was absolutely disgusted, saying, "What on earth are you eating? You should be eating healthy food." I know it's all changed now, but what were the diets like for you?
Yeah, I think it changed round about sort of the Arsene Wenger. I know we all call it the Arsene Wenger era,
Yeah.
but it did change. I remember being in the canteen and we was all having like cheese toasties before training and stuff like that. And afterwards, food wasn't great at first when I was like a young pro at Tottenham. But then suddenly we had a sports scientist called Kunle came in. And then we had chefs come in and things started really improving really quickly. And by the time actually when I went to Charlton, we had nothing. So I went from it starting to get really, really professional at Tottenham. Then I
Yeah.
went to Charlton and there was no food whatsoever for the players. So I've gone from one thing, thinking things are getting better, and then suddenly I'm back to square one again. But then when I went to Villa, we had a chef. We had a chef on the coach. We had to eat after the game. Everyone had to eat together, so they knew what you was getting. So things moved on fairly quickly, and nutrition absolutely was pivotal in everyone becoming better body fats and all that kind of stuff, and better athletes and better machines that you see out there today.
So you kind of left to it at Charlton then to just sort yourself out.
Yeah, and I'm not going to try and make excuses because I didn't have a great start to my Charlton career. Really, I was okay, but I
Yeah.
felt like my performances with Tottenham were better than my performances at Charlton, which shouldn't really happen. But when I turned up, there was no food after training, and I was living on my own, so I had to go and then try and prepare something from somewhere, and probably wasn't eating very well at all. And it was like we was a Premier League club at Charlton, but we wasn't ready yet. But what we did have was like such a camaraderie between the lads that took us through the seasons of staying up.
Yeah. Look, what's the biggest misconception that people have about footballers and their lives?
Maybe that it doesn't mean enough to them. Maybe I think sometimes the crowd, or you can hear it in a pub, that he weren't at it today. He weren't at the races, and it doesn't mean enough to him. But I can assure you that when you lose a game of football, I don't know whether it's the same now, but in my day and the way I felt, like it ruined your weekend, like completely ruin it. And the only time that I had an enjoyable weekend in my career was when I didn't lose. So obviously a disappointing point wouldn't be great, but it wouldn't be the end of the world. But if you lost a game of football, you've got to wait so long to put that right. That it used to absolutely, and I can't imagine what it would be like for a manager as well.
So you think it is different now, of players not really caring like they used to?
I think the squads are so big now that you might get a few players that are quite happy to be that impact player, that squad player, the bench warmer, if you like. And
Yeah.
is he determined? Is he annoyed? Is he frustrated? Is he chomping at the bit to be in the 11, or is he quite happy, being part of a squad? And in my day, I think when I first got, I think there was only 3 subs. I might be wrong, but I think there might have only been 3 subs. But now you've got, I don't know what it is now, but I would hate to have been a sub now, because you're sitting there, you look around, the whole bench is full of players that can come on. And even if you start nowadays, you used to have to try and play well to stay on the pitch to finish it. Now you're going to make 5 subs. It's,
Yeah.
defeats the object for me.
Look, when you were a Premier League footballer, how did you balance football with family and personal life? Because as we know now, a lot of the games, not this year, there's only one on Boxing Day, but a lot of training goes on during the Christmas period. How tough is that for a footballer?
Yeah, it's tough, but it's normal. It's like the norm. And my wife and my family, they just part and parcel of dad's job, and you just get on with it. And if I'm honest, you don't really like think about it too much. It's just right. Christmas Eve, I'm off. I've got to go to the hotel and have a good Christmas, everyone. I'll see you. I'll see you on Boxing Day for a bit of grub after the game. But yeah, it's just something that's part and parcel of the game, and you don't overthink it. And you're so privileged to be a footballer that you can take missing a few bits and pieces of family time and Christmases.
Luke, what was the dressing room culture like at the clubs that you played at, and particularly, players that have come from different countries? How did you how did you see that, through the clubs that you played at?
Probably different at a lot of clubs. Some clubs try to be as inclusive as quickly as possible, as get everyone together and immerse each other together. Like if you got a new signing from a foreign country, that you would want to make them feel part of it straight away. But there are some clubs where players would sign, and especially at QPR actually, because there was just an influx of player after player after player after player, that never felt like a squad environment at all. But obviously, like I spoke earlier about my days at Charlton, we was such a unified squad that if we wasn't, we wouldn't have been able to stay in the league. I don't think, because that fight that we had for each other every weekend or midweek in the games, that's what was our strong point, was everyone being in it together.
Luke, when you were playing, do you think that social media would have been a good thing for you?
No, no, I don't think so. Although, as I mentioned earlier, I quite liked the criticism to try and prove people wrong.
Yeah,
But I think now it crosses the line a little bit. But I sit here now saying I would have been good at ignoring it and maybe just putting it to one side and not really looking at it. But I do feel like it probably is not a good thing. But the players bring it on themselves a little bit as well, because they're all on it. And when they
yeah.
win, it's, played hard today. What a great game. And, you're the world's best thing. And the next minute you put yourself in the firing line a little bit if you make a mistake.
Which of your teammates in your career um, did you unexpectedly talented or underrated? Who has been underrated in your opinion during your career?
Underrated.
Where perhaps you saw them in training and thought that they're absolutely top notch, absolutely brilliant professional, but didn't perhaps get the game time that they probably deserved.
Well, I feel like you either deserve it by your performances when you do get given your opportunity, or you don't. You can become like we used to call them midweek internationals. So you get players in training when there's no pressure and they look
Yeah,
unbelievable. Get them away at Anfield in front of 40,000 with an unbelievable atmosphere, and they can't perform. So there was players like Jose Dominguez, which was he could go past everyone in training and score a goal, like beating 3 or 4 men.
yeah.
Didn't quite work for him, on the first team level in the games. But there's quite a lot of players. I mean, I loved playing with Chris Perry as a centre back, because I knew exactly what he was going to do. He knew where I was going to be, and sometimes just the players that know their position inside out are great to play alongside. But if you're going about like sort of outrageous talent that should have done more, then Andy Reid springs to mind. I played with Andy Reid at Charlton. He had incredible ability,
Mm.
and probably should have done more in his career.
Who was the best player you ever trained with?
Well, it'd be the same as played with. I'd probably say David Ginola. Not that he was the best trainer, but he was the best player, I would say, that I ever played with.
But you sound like you were one of the manager's favourites in terms of training. You sound like an excellent trainer. Who was similar to you?
Stan Petrov, James Milner, probably James Milner, Stephen Carr, um, Scotty Parker,
Yeah,
excellent player, Scotty Parker. Um, those types, yeah, but maybe James Milner and Scotty.
yeah. Milner. I sorry, he's never going to stop, is he? Um, who's the best leader or captain you've ever had in your career?
Um, Sol would lead by his performances. Stan Petrov would lead performance and vocally. Who else did I play under? Um, Martin Larsson would lead with his performances, but I'd probably say Stan, because he could lead with his performance. He could be vocal, but he was also one of the lads as well, which is
Yeah.
difficult to do.
Yeah. Which manager challenged you the most during your career?
Probably Martin O'Neill, through the fact that I don't think he fancied me, so I had to raise my game to get in the 11. And maybe in the end, I changed his mind a little bit. But I didn't have any relationship with him really, and I didn't want one or need one. I was never the type of player that really wanted a relationship with a manager. Like, if I'm doing well, pick me, great. If I'm not, tell me what you want me to do, and I'll try and do it to get back in. But other than that, I didn't really need much more. But I think there was periods where Martin left me out, and then I got back in, and then got a good run in the side. So,
Look, the question I asked you earlier about when you're on international duty, how much you had to do with the manager one-to-one. At a club, it's totally different, though, isn't it? You have a lot of one-to-one.
you don't have a lot. It depends what type of manager you've got, and whether the player wants it or needs it. Because managers are quite clever. If they know there's a player that needs an arm around them and needs telling you was great the weekend, then obviously they're going to do that to get the best out of that player. I never craved it. I felt a bit uncomfortable actually talking to managers and just tell me what you want. Like I said earlier, I'll do it to the best of my ability, but I didn't really need too much more than that. And some managers don't want to give you that anyway, which is perfect for me. George Graham didn't want to give you that. Martin O'Neill didn't want to give you that. I had a little bit more to do with Curbs, maybe. Gareth Southgate liked to talk a lot and get to know his players. But other than that, there's not a lot of one-on-one. Listen, if you're having a one-on-one with a manager, generally it's because you're not performing great.
Well, the one-to-one you did have, what's the best ever piece of advice that a manager has given you?
I scored an own goal for Middlesbrough against West Ham. We lost 3-1 away. And I know I said earlier about going in on a Monday morning and getting a good sweat on, but I was a bit down. And the manager went, "What's the matter with you?" I said, I was obviously, what do you mean, Gav? I scored an own goal the weekend. We've lost. And he said that he missed a penalty to make us go out of the European Championships. Like, there's worse things in the world type thing. And said, "Hey, come on, pick yourself up. You've been one of our best players recently." And little things like that were great to get you back on track.
Look, talking about teammates, which teammate would you say pushed you to be a better player?
Stephen Carr, through, as I mentioned earlier, seeing the level that he was playing at and training with him made me realise if I can get close to that, then I'm not far away from being a Premier League fullback.
Look, when you look back at your career, if you could pick one moment to relive, what would it be?
Running out. It's not White Hart Lane anymore, is it? But running out of the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and hearing "Glory, Glory, Tottenham Hotspur" come on again.
What's something you wish you knew at the start of your career?
Gone blank. I've
Fair
gone
enough.
blank.
Yeah, there was a lot of questions. We're getting to the last few now, Luke. You'll be pleased to know.
On. You said quick
What's
fire.
What's the hardest decision you've had to make as a player?
I was quite lucky with decisions regarding leaving clubs, and they was almost all no-brainers. Like, I had to go, really. So the hardest decision I've had to make as a player, probably when I left Aston Villa to go to QPR. I didn't necessarily have to go. I mean, I started the first 3 games of the season for Villa, but I heard a rumour and I kind of knew that Alex McLeish wanted Hutton. So I decided that, and then QPR came in for me and I got an extra year. So, but I think I still felt I had a lot to give at Villa, but perhaps a new manager coming in and I had to make a decision to go to Queen's Park Rangers.
We touched on this regarding regrets in your career, but is there anything that you do regret not doing during your playing days?
Scoring for Tottenham and not playing at Wembley in the 3 occasions that I got the opportunity.
Yeah. Your proudest achievement in football?
Playing for England.
Yeah. That must be incredible. How has the Premier League changed since that you played in it?
I think when I was playing in it, I saw a couple of occasions where the fitness level and the power and the explosiveness of the game went up a level. I saw that a couple of times, and I think it's gone again to, to elite levels now. The fitness, and I'm guessing everyone's like 0% body fats, and the sports science in the game. Everyone's a machine now, and I feel like perhaps that's the biggest difference from when I played.
Well, look, you still look very fit and well. You still keep a good diet, and you still into fitness.
I try to, just because as you're getting older and you're into your mid to late 40s, I feel like it's hard to keep the weight off. So I feel like it's a good start to the day to get yourself in the gym and then go from there.
Is it easier now for a Premier League footballer than it was in your day?
Easier in what way?
Training, playing matches, giving your all.
No, I think there's probably more scrutiny on it now. Like I said before about getting judged, when I was getting judged, it would have been from fans, journalists, and your coaches. Social media is huge now, so everyone's got an opinion on
Yeah.
anything and everything. So I think they're constantly getting scrutinised, but I think that comes part and part. The sooner you embrace that and know that's not going away, and that's part of your job, then that's better for the player.
Luke, are you a fan of VAR?
Yes and no. I watched a couple of games where they didn't have it, and there was a couple of occasions where the result was swayed by a wrong decision, either an offside or a penalty that should have been or shouldn't have been. And I actually thought that although there are mistakes with VAR, that would have been overturned and you would have got more right decisions with VAR. Obviously, there are occasions where it takes a bit too long for the decision, but if it's the right decision, I'm all for it. If they're searching and hunting for something that's not there, that's when I'm against it.
Look, do you think social media, I know we've spoken about this a little bit already, but has social media changed the relationship between the players and the fans?
Well, they can communicate with each other now, can't they? So if there is a story about a certain player, he can put that right within seconds by going on his own social media to voice what actually is going on there. But I'm not a fan of players being on it, but I understand that it's part of their brand now. So if
Yeah.
they can grow a huge social media platform, when they retire, they've already got something there waiting for them to move into.
I can't wait to hear your answer here. Which current Premier League player reminds you most of you?
Oh, these are tough, when they're thrown upon you. Maybe the lad at Crystal Palace, the right back. Is it Munoz? Munoz?
Okay.
Just because his work ethic and his stamina and the fact that he makes run after run after run is something that I could see in my game.
What would Luke Young be worth now?
Now, sitting here on this seat here, talking to you.
No, back in the day.
Nothing. I don't know. What was the most I ever went for was about 6. I don't know. In my prime, I don't know. Probably might have gone for 30. I don't know.
Yeah, it's crazy prices now, Luke, isn't it?
Going rate, wasn't it? So, yeah.
Yeah. Right. Last few questions. Talking about post-career life. How did you adjust to life after football and retiring?
I think I mentioned this before. It was quite easy for me because I felt retired already, and I didn't play in front of 40 or 50,000 fans one week and then retire the next. I had a slow kind of petering out at QPR where I was still under contract, but obviously not to the standard to play first team football. So it was a relief for me to actually go home that last day and say that I'm no longer a footballer. And I don't think many footballers get that privilege to feel that way. So I feel like I was quite lucky in that way, even though the situation wasn't great at the time.
Luke, Stephen writes here, £55 million all day long.
Cheers, Steve. Appreciate that, mate.
Do you miss the routines of professional sport?
Yeah, for sure, because you knew where you had to be, what you had to do, what you had to wear, and there was always an end result. So you have a game that week and you either win it or you don't, and then you're on to the next game. So maybe the routine, the schedule, and the end goal of every week was to pick up 3 points.
Look, what advice would you give to any young players trying to make the step into professional football today?
Every time you put your boots on, see that as an opportunity to improve and get better, because I think it's those little improvements day on, day out that get you to the level that, and you can maximise your potential by doing that.
Will we ever see you going into coaching or management?
No.
100%.
100%.
In football in any way, at any football club, any sort of appointment?
I just feel like at 46, I've kind of missed the boat. Like, you should be learning your trade. I should have gone straight into it at 35. I could have gone into like an academy and done the under 10s and then the under 15s and then the youth team. And then, so I feel like starting at 46 would be a long, long road. And I don't feel like you should take shortcuts either with something like that.
Yeah. Luke, very last question. What is next in your life? And again, tell us all about the new podcast that you just started.
Yeah, so I'm really enjoying the podcast. It is called More Than a Name, and we're getting to know sportsmen more than just what they did on the field. You know, there's a lot of sort of trials and tribulations that many sports people have to go through to get to the elite level, and there's a lot of adversity thrown at them, and it's really interested in learning how they dealt with certain situations. And I was always sport mad as a kid, absolutely loved any sport, and I can't listen to enough podcasts on people's careers, so it's something I've always been interested in, and I've really enjoyed it with Max Whittle, sports presenter, and enjoying, and it's also giving me the opportunity to reach out to ex-teammates to say, do you want to come on? And quite a few of them are saying yes, which is fantastic for me. And I've also got the mentoring and analysis company. We're called Elevate Players. Elevate's the company, but on Instagram it's Elevate Players. And any young players that can get their games to us, then we will obviously have a look at your game at the weekend. We'll see things that we feel like you can do better. We'll have a Zoom chat on it, and we're also there to mentor the players throughout the week. So I feel like it stops those sort of average type performances from dragging on week after week, where you can give a young player a few pointers here and there, and it really accelerates their sort of learning, if you like.
Luke, on the podcast, any ex-Spurs or England players coming on very soon?
Darren Bent said he's going to come on. I was with him today, obviously, and he said he's definitely going to come on. I've asked Darren Anderton to come on when he's over. So yeah, potentially I'll try and get as many Spurs players on there as I can, and as it grows, I want to go for the big ones, and I want to get David Ginola maybe on, and people like that kind of were, you know, I know I played with them, but were kind of heroes of mine as well.
Yeah. Well, Luke, thank you so much for your time. We have been on here for nearly 2 hours. Fair play to you, because you've actually answered over 100 of my questions. So apologies for putting you through that amount of questions. And, you know, we should also say that I didn't tell you what I was going to ask, which, you know, you could probably tell because you took a second or two to think about them. But very best of luck with your podcast. I hope that goes down extremely well. You know, it's a great listen. I've listened to the first episode and really, really enjoyed it. And thank you so much for your time.
Thanks a lot, Chris. Enjoyed it, mate. Thanks for asking all those questions, mate. I don't think I could take another one.
Luke, thank you so much, and hopefully we will talk to you again very soon. Best of luck with the podcast, and thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening, and we will be back with another episode of the Spurs Chat Podcast very soon. Until the next time, come on, you Spurs.